walk into this makeshift type room where there's a massage table, and then the door shuts behind me and it's locked.
Jose Alfaro shares how he became a survivor of human trafficking.
I grew up in a very small, conservative and rural town called Navasota in Texas. I wasn't as masculine as the other boys in school, and I really, really struggled with that because all I knew was that I was trying to be myself. I grew up incredibly insecure, really feeling like I wasn't good enough. I also was experiencing bullying in school because of my effeminate behavior. I really started to realize that I had more of an interest in men or males than I did with females. And I think that was probably one of the hardest times in my life because I grew up in the church. We grew up extremely religious. And so I knew that homosexuality was considered an abomination, and that was constantly in the back of my head, thinking, you're gonna go to hell, no one is going to accept you, you're gonna be rejected.
Jose's sister Amanda confirmed to Inside Edition Digital that the conservative milieu in which they grew up was difficult for someone like Jose, noting simply, it was hard. As a teen, Jose secretly began seeing another young man, his first relationship. They would keep in touch by phone and text. When the relationship was discovered, Jose was sent to live with a relative and attend a new high school in San Antonio, hours away from home.
So I moved to San Antonio, Texas. I'm waiting to be enrolled into school, and I feel completely isolated. I have no friends. I don't know anyone. I'm in a new town where I'm absolutely terrified to go and explore because I've never been in a big city. And I went online to MySpace, and I get a message and start talking to this older man in his 30s who basically just starts a conversation with me.
Jose agreed to meet the man at a Starbucks.
He won't look at me directly, but he says, there's absolutely no way that we're walking into that Starbucks together because you look so young. Mind you, I'm 5'2". I'm a really small guy. I've always looked really young. But I was young. I was a teenager. I was 15, going on 16 years old, and he is witnessing that I'm underage. And he's afraid that someone's gonna see him with an underage kid who is Mexican when he's white. So he tells me to get into the car, let's go to a nearby park. And I say, okay, we can hang out at the park. So I get in the car. I know this sounds crazy and sketchy. Everyone's like, red flag, why would you do something like that? But I think that at a time where you're so isolated and you feel so alone, the one thing that you want is to form a connection with somebody who understands you and knows, what it's like to grow up being gay and to be rejected. And so I got in the car, and on our way to the park, he says, it looks like it's gonna rain. I don't think a park is a good idea. Why don't we go back to my place? I don't live far from here.
They went to the man's house.
The second I walk in, he walks to a back room. I sit down on the sofa, and I'm waiting there for like 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm like, where the heck did he go? So I get up, I walk towards the back room, and it's his bedroom. Basically was telling me to have sex with him. I was really uncomfortable. He was extremely aggressive with me to the point of borderline violent, basically ends up raping me. I had begged him to stop, and he didn't listen to me. He didn't care. So he takes me back to my car, and on the way back to my car, he starts saying things like, you're a really great kid. I would love to meet up with you again. I think that we could really have something special. So just really making me feel like he really likes me. He really cares about me. And as violent and volatile as that felt, having that connection with someone felt really special. We continued this relationship, I guess you could call it.
Jose returned home for the summer, but he says it was clear to him that he could not live there if he continued to identify as being gay.
I just didn't know what to do or who to turn to. And the only person that I had was this older man who I thought I was in love with and that I thought cared about me. It was working until eventually I recognized that this man was sleeping with other teenagers within the same area. It bothered me that he was sleeping with teenagers, and it also bothered me that ultimately I'm in a way being cheated on. And so I confronted him about it. He basically turned the tables and he goes, "You're just a roommate. You were never anything more to me than just a roommate. That's what we are. Who do I turn to?" And the only thing I could think of was go online, see if you can meet someone who can help you and who can support you. And it felt like I had no other option. And so I'm online, I'm on this chat site, and this guy named Jason RMT, which is his screen name, starts messaging me. And he's simply just like, "How are you? How's your day?" And I had been going through so much that all of it, just like word vomit, just poured out of me. And he empathized with me. And he said, "Look, I have the means to support you if you allow me to." He had made over $1 million. He owned a 9-bedroom home in Austin, Texas. He was in Houston for business. And then also mentioned that if school was a priority of mine, then he could put me into private school. And you have this man promising you a life that you've never experienced that sounds like a dream. And even then, I still wasn't comfortable. I didn't know who this man was. And then I started thinking again, where are you gonna go? And it felt like the only option. So I made the choice to go with him. He said he would pick me up at a local gas station, and I get into the backseat of the car. There's another man in the vehicle who's much older, very creepy looking, and just really looking at me like this sounds weird, but like he wanted to devour me. And literally turns from the backseat and says, "Wow, you look incredible." And all I could feel was a chill go through my body. Oh no, what did I just do? I let it go, moved on, and we end up going to this person's condo in Houston, Texas. And the first thing I asked Jason, his name was Jason Gandy, is, "How long are we gonna be here? When do we go to the 9-bedroom home in Austin?" And he's like, "Maybe a month, maybe longer, I'm not really sure." Okay, so when do I enroll into school again? Are we gonna get that process started? He's like, "We'll talk about that when the time comes." And so I am living with him in this condo. Then he started putting me on a very intense diet of protein and greens. That's all I was allowed to eat beyond Raisin Bran cereal, which to this day I will not eat. I was not allowed to have any other types of food. And then I had to go to the gym every day, twice a day. And looking back now, I understand why he put me on this strict diet and fitness routine. And all of it was so that I became a perfect product for him to sell to other people. He says to me, "Look, I know one day you're gonna wanna live a life on your own, and you're gonna wanna be able to support yourself." And he says, "I know a way. I run a massage therapy business on the side." And he said, "I would really like if you worked for me in my massage business." And immediately I'm like, "Oh, I've always wanted to be a receptionist." He's like, No. I don't want you to work as like a receptionist. I want you to work as a massage therapist." And I'm like, "Okay, but I don't know how to give a professional massage." And he goes, "That's the easy part. The hard part is that you're not 18 years old. And because you're not 18 years old, you could get into a lot of trouble." So now I'm thinking in my mind, oh crap, if somebody finds out, I'm gonna get into trouble. When the reality is that he would have gotten into a lot of trouble, but he manipulated that and made me believe that it was me so that I wouldn't go to law enforcement and tell anybody anything that was happening. So he says, if anybody asks you what your age is, you tell them that you're 18 years old, and you tell them that you're working as a apprentice to become a massage therapist. And I'm like, okay, but I still don't know how to give a massage. And so I was really nervous. He said, I'm going to be in the room with you. And I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better knowing that you're going to be there to guide me. And he goes, great, I already have an appointment set up. And all I kept thinking was, how weird, you didn't know that I was going to say yes. And I said, well, how do these people know that they're getting a massage from me? And he said, I used your photo that you had when we first chatted, and I posted an ad, and we have somebody who wants to have a massage from us. I walk into this makeshift type room where there's a massage table, and this grown man is completely naked, lying face down on a massage table. And then the door shuts behind me and it's locked. I know what is about to happen. And with the door being locked and shut, and with a grown man, two grown men in the room, whom I don't know, are completely naked, what am I going to do and where am I going to go? I can't go to law enforcement because I'm going to get in trouble now. If I leave the room, is the person on the table going to get up and harm me because he's fearful that, one, he might be outed, or two, he's receiving a sexual massage from an underage male? Or is Jason going to stop me and hurt me in some type of way? Is he not going to allow me to stay with him anymore? Is he going to lock me in a room for good?
Jose says he was sexually assaulted by the man on the table.
I remember disassociating, completely blacking out, and almost like waking up to Jason's voice saying, okay, you're done, you can go. As time goes on, these massages become more and more violent, and the clients are then allowed to do whatever they want with me. And I think my final straw was a grown man coming into the room saying that he wanted to give me a massage, where he violently raped me. And as he left, he's putting his wedding ring on his finger and putting his suit on and kisses me on my forehead and says, you remind me so much of my son. And I remember just like in tears, crying, feeling like this is just something that I don't want to do anymore. And I don't know how to get out of this. And I start thinking and planning and trying to figure out some type of way so that I don't have to do this anymore.
Jose says he managed to get his hands on one of Jason Gandy's phones when Gandy was out of the house.
I dial my previous abuser's phone number, and he says, I will pick you up first thing in the morning tomorrow morning. The only reason why I went with him was in comparison to what Jason was doing to me. Suddenly, the things that abuser had done to me were no longer that bad.
Before he left, Jose decided to look around Gandy's room.
I'm looking through his drawers, I'm looking through his closet, and then last but not least, I grabbed his laptop. And I knew the password to his laptop, but I never had time alone with the laptop to search through it. I end up finding images of child sexual abuse material all over his laptop, and I am just completely horrified. I'm talking boys that are probably 7, maybe younger. I'm like, I need to go. Like, I absolutely am making the right decision. I have to get out of here. And we came back. It was a normal night, and we went to sleep. I woke up around 7 a.m. I look out the window. He's there, ready to pick me up. I run out of the garage, and I'm literally running to the car, and I'm just like bawling my eyes out. And I just remember thinking, like, step on the gas, like, let's just go. I never want to do this again. And oddly enough, my abuser ended up telling me, I can't believe you let him do that to you. He basically was pimping you out. You're a prostitute. And I just remember having those feelings again of, it's all my fault. I did this to myself. And I cannot tell anybody.
Jose was eventually able to leave that situation as well. What followed were several challenging years in which he tried to build an independent life for himself while dealing with the pain, shame, anxiety, and PTSD from his teen years. It wasn't until a friend shared a news item with Jose that he was able to confront what had happened to him.
The news was a news article of Jason being arrested, taking a 15-year-old boy to the London Olympics to sex traffic him. I sat there with that article and he said, I really think you should call the hotline that's provided at the bottom of the article. And it was the National Human Trafficking Hotline. 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, I sent a text to the hotline. A long text explaining everything that had happened to me. And they got in contact with me immediately, asked me if I was in a safe place, and then asked if they could call me the next morning because it was 3 a.m. in the morning. I said, absolutely. The next day, they basically connected me with the Department of Homeland Security in Boston, Massachusetts. The Department of Homeland Security then connected me to the prosecutors that were working on the case against Gandy. 6 years after his arrest, and we're finally going to trial, and I'm like, you know what? I'm ready. I can do this, I can handle it. And I'm sitting in a room with the prosecutors, going over the case, telling them my story, and Jason Gandy was in the room. There was a jury present, and for the first time I had to give my testimony publicly, and I was shaking uncontrollably. The hardest part was a moment when they asked me to identify myself on a projected photo that they had on a white wall. And it was a photo of me that I had taken in the back room at the condo for these ads. And it's a photo of me where I'm shirtless, I'm 16 years old, and they're asking me, is this you? And can you identify who that is? And I just remember bawling my eyes out and saying, that's me. And the reason why I got, and why I'm getting emotional, is in that moment, looking at that photo, it was, I do not recognize that boy in that photo. I don't remember being happy. I don't remember what it felt like to be okay. It was just a moment of reflection and being like, will I ever be that boy again? Will I ever be that person? And the answer is no.
In 2018, a jury found Jason Gandy guilty on several counts, including sex trafficking of minors. He was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. Under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, Jose filed a civil case against Gandy. He was awarded $1.43 million, though he doesn't expect to see that money ever. Jose now uses his story and experience to fight trafficking.
I decided to go into advocacy and activism full time. And so I have been tremendously blessed with opportunities to either consult with federal agencies, consult with national and international organizations. The reason why I am so open about my story and my experience is mostly because I received messages from many, many men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who share with me that they have gone through something very similar or have gone through some form of sex abuse as a young child or even as a teen, and because of their sexuality, because they are gay men, or just because they're male in general, never had the courage to come forward and share what happened to them, with fear of backlash due to the stigma that surrounds men and boys and sexual abuse. Just the number of people that have contacted me and have thanked me and have shared with me that it has given them hope that maybe one day they will hold the person that hurt them accountable, or maybe even that they'll just write it down in a book and burn it or use it in some type of way. But the one thing that they want to be able to do is get it out of them and be able to move on with their life.
If you or someone you know needs help, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 1-888-373-7888 or text 233-733. This is Inside Edition Digital.